Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I have a ton of updates to share about the investigations and lawsuits against Donald Trump, his allies. So, first, the biggest news of all, Trump advisor and former White House official Kash Patel has been granted limited immunity. They are asking him to testify in front of the grand jury again. The grand jury obviously investigating the classified documents issue. And I can't stress how consequential and monumental this is. In previous grand jury interviews, Patel repeatedly pleaded the fifth. He wanted to avoid self-incrimination, which tells you he thought he had done something wrong. And this is the guy who went on numerous right-wing shows. He claimed that Trump issued a blanket declassification order for a lot of these documents. So Patel was one of the people who was put in charge of negotiating with the National Archives when they sought the return of these documents. So he would have been involved with discussions with Trump about this subject. So he could potentially provide corroborating testimony proving that Trump actively worked to obstruct justice and purposely hid these documents. And of course, he still could lie, right? He could lie under oath. He could give false testimony before the grand jury, but he has no idea what other witnesses have already said. And just because he's granted some sort of immunity in regard to the documents case, that doesn't give him any protection from perjury charges. And if Patel continues to assert that these documents were declassified, there will need to be proof. There's going to need to be evidence to back that up, because contrary to what Trump and his minions claim, there is a process, especially if you are going to declassify sensitive documents like nuclear weapons programs. Also, it's important to remember, it doesn't matter if Trump did declassify these documents. The laws that were cited in the Justice Department affidavit have been violated by Trump, whether these items were declassified or not. The only thing that matters is whether or not he took them, which we know he did, and also if he continued to hold them, whereby obstructing the investigation, which we also know he did. So the only question outstanding at this point is whether or not Garland has the ovaries to file charges against him. So next up is news related to Trump and January 6th. The government watchdog group called CREW, which stands for Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, they filed a lawsuit against numerous government agencies and their leaders for failing to preserve communications regarding the Capitol attack. So CREW alleges a violation of duties by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Secret Service, Department of Defense, and the Army, as well as the National Archives. The group is therefore asking the court to declare that these people and agencies violated regulations, and they're asking for the court to order these defendants to, quote, recover, retrieve, restore, salvage, or reconstruct the records. So we'll see where that goes. Next is a lawsuit we've never talked about. It's the one brought by protesters who were assaulted by the Trump Organization security guards. This was outside of Trump Tower in 2015. So this case was headed to court, and then at the last minute, the Trump Organization decided to settle. According to the Daily Beast, this could be due to the fact that they found it very difficult to find 12 jurors in this area of New York who don't loathe Trump. They said that shortly after potential jurors were released for lunch, Trump attorneys approached the protesters with a settlement offer, and the deal was signed by his vile attorney, Alina Habba, at 12:32 p.m. Next up is John Eastman and his emails. As you guys know, a judge ordered Eastman to hand over damning emails to the January 6th Select Committee. These emails reportedly showed evidence of crimes being committed. Well, Eastman complied, but he appealed the decision. Unfortunately for Eastman, the committee had already accessed the documents. So then Eastman asked the appeals court to either have copies of the documents destroyed or returned if they were in paper form, and then to prohibit the committee from using the documents in their investigation. Well, in the meantime, these emails were leaked to the public because apparently his attorney, not doing a great job, left the link to retrieve these documents. I think it was on Dropbox. He left it as active and open for anyone to view. So reporters got a hold of it, and now some details have emerged on the contents of these emails, which further indicates that Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas might be compromised. So here's the deal on that. In a December 31st, 2020 email sent from attorney Kenneth Chesebro, this was sent to Eastman as well as others. He stated that Justice Thomas would, quote, end up being key to overturning the election. Chesebro advised all of these people that they, quote, frame things so that Thomas could be the one to issue some sort of stay or other circuit justice opinion saying Georgia is in legitimate doubt. Also, quote, realistically, our only chance to get a favorable judicial opinion by Jan 6, which might hold up the Georgia count in Congress, is from Thomas. Do you agree, Professor Eastman? So between this and the fact that Thomas's spouse, Jenny, was concurrently pressuring other state officials to overturn their election results, and she was simultaneously communicating with Eastman, Thomas needs to be investigated, period, full stop. And then also just today, Eastman dropped his appeal. So now that all these emails are out in the public sphere, he's like, oh, well, I guess no need to spend more money on attorney's fees. So he dropped his appeal. In other January 6th committee news, Secret Service spokesman Anthony Guglielmi, I think is how you pronounce it, he was interviewed on Monday by the January 6th committee. They purportedly questioned him about a statement that he issued refuting Cassidy Hutchins' testimony about Trump throwing a violent temper tantrum on January 6th. It's also now been reported that the committee questioned the Nevada State Republican chairman, Michael McDonald. Not that Michael McDonald. McDonald was one of the state's fake electors. He tried to overturn the election for Trump. And McDonald has now confirmed that the FBI seized his cell phone all the way back in June. In regard to Trump's tax returns, the Supreme Court has temporarily halted the release of his returns to the House Ways and Means Committee. This decision was made by Chief Justice John Roberts. If the full court decides to take up this case, it could permanently delay or end the whole request, because most likely Republicans are going to take control of the House in the midterms. They will definitely kill the entire inquest. In New York tax fraud news, Trump filed a lawsuit against New York Attorney General Letitia James. This happened yesterday. He alleges that the charges she filed against him are an abuse of power. This is for political gain, trying to intimidate him. He's going to have a hard time making that case, given the fact that, you know, she took down Democrat Andrew Cuomo. She's now secured a more than $3 million penalty against CBS News and its former CEO. So she's proven she cares about justice above all else. She will go after scum on either side of the aisle. Also in this case, it was literally just before I started recording announced that her request to have basically a babysitter keep an eye on the Trump organization has been granted by the judge. So you guys might remember a couple weeks back, I think it was, I mentioned that she caught the Trump organization continuing to commit these crimes, even though they're now going to court over this. Over their violations of the law in regard to taxes. She's caught them still violating the law. On top of that, she caught them creating a second corporation called Trump Organization 2. And so she thinks that what they're going to do is try to move all of their assets out of the Trump organization. So even if they get a judgment against them, they won't have to pay anything. So she asked the court to please give me a babysitter to watch over them so that they can't keep doing these things and they can't move their assets. And the judge said yes. Whoops. As for the Georgia investigation, the Supreme Court has ruled that Senator Lindsey Graham must testify in front of the grand jury investigating Trump's efforts to overturn the election results in that state. Unfortunately, it doesn't mean that this whole court battle is over. According to legal experts, Graham could still refuse to answer questions when he appears. So he could claim that the information is protected because it's related to his work as a senator. So then it would be up to the Georgia district attorney if they want to take him to court again to battle it out to force him to answer. So I would assume that it's going to depend on the subject matter and what other evidence or testimony they may have obtained that might refute Graham's claims, that it falls under the speech and debate clause. But Graham's office issued a statement following this decision by SCOTUS, and it sure sounds like he plans to fight just about every question that he's asked. So we'll see what happens. Also in Georgia, the district attorney ordered 3 Trump supporters to appear before the grand jury, and one of them will be doing so next week. So the first person will sound familiar. Trevian Kutti, she was the so-called publicist for Kanye West when she approached and tried to strong arm the Georgia election worker, Ruby Freeman. She tried to get her to confess to a crime that she didn't commit. Willie Floyd III is the second person that they've subpoenaed to appear. He also goes by the name of Harrison Floyd, and he's the man that Kutti called when she was with Ruby Freeman. She put them on the phone together. Floyd is described only as a fan of polo, the game, the cologne, the clothing. I don't know. I mean, inquiring minds want to know. But anyway, the final person the Georgia DA summoned is Stephen Lee. He's an Illinois pastor, and he's scheduled to testify next week. He's the one that will be there next Tuesday. According to the court documents, Lee is the one who facilitated the meeting between Kutti and Ruby Freeman, and then he accompanied them to a local police station where this discussion took place. So Lee was heard on police body cam telling an officer, quote, "I'm a pastor, and I'm also with some folks who are trying to help Ruby out, okay? And also get some truth of what's going on." So Pastor Lee was also captured on video sitting outside of Freeman's home on December 15th of 2020. He apparently knocked on her door, and then he kind of hung around after that, and then he was caught on video. So, and she called the police. So that's where things stand, guys. I know it's a lot. My God. When you have a repeat offender and you have a lifelong criminal, yeah. I mean, career criminal here, Donald Trump. So anyway, I will let you know when I hear more. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care, and I'll talk with you soon.